Good morning. Welcome to How Are We Here, my little channel where I can share with you all the neat things I read, watch, or look up on the interweb. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we are here according to the Canaanites. So sit back and let me tell you a tale or two. In my searches for old legends of creation, I found myself curious on Canaan. The Canaanites, whom I mainly heard about from the Old Testament, are people from the ancient Levant region of the Middle East. They did not leave much of what they believed in, and what is found is broken and maybe a little tainted. People smarter than I, who do this research for a living, have tried to piece it all together. So today's tale, it's going to be fragmented, a little jarring, but let's give it a shot. The entire world was once only cloudy darkness, which we will call Arapel, and it was also wind, which we will call the Ba'ad. The Ba'ad would eventually produce the Ra'uch, another type of wind. The Ra'uch, it did not mingle with the Arapel. Instead, it blew the darkness away. When this happened, light was brought forth. However, there were no fields or marshes, no gods were yet born. Everything was barren and desolate. Ages would pass before the gods finally emerged. The first was El, the great god. He was the original creator god, the creator of all created things. And with the help of the great goddess, Ashura, children were born. 70 sons and daughters, the Elohim, the children of El. Among these children were Shemuma, heaven, and Archzu, earth. They were not yet separate though, joined as one, like an egg. So let's take a minute to go over a couple children of note. One would be Yamm, god of the sea, god of the chaotic waters of the primeval deep. Yahweh, a warrior deity with powers of weather as well. Mot, god of death and lord of the underworld. Shapash, goddess of the sun, also the personal messenger of El. And then Baal, the mighty rider of clouds, the storm god of thunder and rain. Before these gods, the world, it was uninhabitable. It was chaotic, a barren and desolate wasteland. But with these gods, the land, it became like mud, a wet sand, soaked by the waters of the deep. The entire world, it was covered by a fathomless ocean, an abyss of water. Shemuma, heaven, wished the world to stay this way, wanted it so bad they waged war upon El. But El, he is mighty, and defeats Shemuma. El carries off heaven, and its consort, Ashura, she carries off the earth. They placed them in creation, heaven above and earth below. Yamm, though, he is enraged, probably because he liked all of his chaotic waters everywhere. All would flee before his fury. The Elohim did not want to face Yamm. They did not want to fight his allies, Canaan, dragon of the sea, and Loran, the sea serpent with 7 heads. This we will cover more in the Baal cycle next. 6 tablets, discovered in the 1920s on the Mediterranean coast, in the Tell of Ugarit. So, these tablets, they pick up at the beginning of the battle between Baal and Yamm, but it is lost. We first hear of Korthar Wakisis, the craftsman of the god, is summoned by El. El tells him to build a palace for Yamm, quickly, to maybe stave off any aggression from Yamm. Antar, a deity associated with Venus, the morning star, hears this and grabs a torch for some reason. Text is missing here, but they are confronted by Shapash, the messenger of El. They talk back and forth a bit, but Antar, he's not having a place of their own for court, and Shapash saying it's probably because they don't have a wife. More lost text, sorry guys, but we pick up at El sitting in his banquet hall. The other deities are complaining about Yamm, Yamm being shamed, but the damaged text makes the reason unclear, but it alludes to another palace issue. These gods, they're threatening violence unless it is resolved, so El pacifies them with curdled milk. I guess the gods, they like that stuff because it worked. Kothar Wakasis arrives under the sea and tells Yamm that he has risen to a higher position, but Baal won't stand idly by. He threatens that Yamm could be destroyed by a magical weapon. So Yamm sends word to El, in his abode upon the Mount of Lil, that Baal and his henchmen they need to surrender. Baal, who was hanging out on Mount Lel because he doesn't have his own palace, which he is already deeply upset about, he attacks the envoys of Yam. Anat, another goddess, and Ashura, the great goddess, they hold him back. Today's tale resumes with Baal and Yam. They're already battling. Baal is faltering under the power of Yam and the fierce sea creatures. Cathar Wakasis tells Baal not all is lost, and he will win a kingdom in the end. He fetches two divine clubs for Baal, giving the clubs magical names. He strikes Yam twice himself before he gives them back to Baal. Baal then uses the mighty magical clubs, and he drags Yam down, and he finishes him. Ashura tells Baal he should scatter his rival. So Baal, he scatters his rival's remains. He cries out for all to hear that Yam is dead, and he, Baal, shall be king. A banquet to honor Baal is held upon Mount Zephon. After this, the text resumes with Anat closing her door to her mansion and meeting with her servants. She meets them in a valley where there are two cities. Side note, this could have been Ugarit and its port city, where these tablets were found. Anat tells the guards and warriors. She kills them, and she drives off all the townspeople. She also slaughters the warriors and gods in her own palace. She ends this with a peace offering. I am very confused with what this had to do with the story so far. The story, like I said at the beginning, it's fragmented here, but it resumes with Baal addressing his messengers. He pictures his Anat sitting with her lair and singing of her affection for him and his daughters. So his messengers, they're told to perform a specific rite so that she may offer them an important communication for Baal. What is this important message? It's the secret of lightning. Anat and Baal together, they search for the secret on Mount Zephon. Anat will only perform if Baal will set his thunderbolt in the sky and flash his lightning. Take that for what it is. The tale picks up again, with Baal complaining to Anat that unlike the other gods, he has no court, he has no house. He is forced to dwell in the home of his father El and Ashura. So on behalf of Baal, Anat, she goes and threatens El. She says she will make his gray hair run with blood unless Baal is given a palace. Earthquakes, they rumble at her feet, forcing El to leave his chamber. Some more of this tale is lost to time, but it is clear that she failed in her attempt. So Baal, he sends Kodesh wa Amra, attendant to Ashura, to bring a message to Kothar Wakasis, who dwells within the land of Egypt. His message was simple: please fashion gifts for El's consort Ashura to win her to his side, to get her back in, so he may have a palace of his own. Kothar Wakasis enters his forge and makes wonderful pieces of furniture, a magnificent pair of sandals, and a beautiful decorative table and bowl. Yeah, I know, kinda lame. Next, we pick up with Ashura. She's doing women's work down along by the seashore. When she sees Baal and Anat approaching her, she wonders if he has come to kill her and all her sons and kinsfolk. So another side note should be made here about a A.T.T myth where a storm god boasts of killing the many sons of Antharat, which is another name for Ashura across these different religions. So back to the tale. Her fear, her anger, it calms when she sees the many gifts that he has brought. So she tells her attendant, that really long name that I'm not going to try to say again, to cast a net into the seas so that she may have provisions and whatnot to entertain her guests. Next, we have Anat hyping up Baal, trying to get him to feel positive, but Baal, he's still anxious about having his own eternal kingdom. The two gods, they persuade Asherah to their cause. Asherah, she returns to El's home and convinces him. El, reluctantly so, agrees that Baal should have his own house, his own palace. Baal, he collects cedar wood, bricks, and the precious metals of the earth as he was instructed to do. Kothar, or Cassis, builds the palace from the materials collected. Baal, though, he doesn't want any windows built. He doesn't want his daughters escaping, and he doesn't want to be troubled if Yamm should return. When the palace is built, Baal rejoices. Baal, he recalls his great triumph over Yamm. He celebrates this by marching out and taking many, many cities in his own name, making them his own. He decides after this it's okay to have windows in his palace, so he thunders them out. We wrap up this part of the Baal cycle with Baal lounging in his palace talking to himself. He asks if anybody would resist his power, and if anybody should, maybe he should send word to Mot, the god of death, to deal with them. Deciding on this, he sends two messages to Mot and invites him to a feast so that Mot could acknowledge Baal's rulership over him. Mot would make his reply, but the end of that tablet is lost as well. Mot, a personification of death, we would have the conclusion to his reply. It would say that he, like a lion in the desert, hungers constantly for human flesh and blood. By inviting Mot to a meal of bread and wine, Mot is offended, and he threatens to cause the heavens to wilt and collapse, breaking Baal into pieces. Mot would then eat him, piece by piece. As the tale continues, Baal, or a speaker on his behalf, admits to fear and dread of Mot. So whomever admitted to being afraid of Mot tells Gapan and Ugar, two gigantic gods who were now messengers of the weather god Baal, that Baal will be eternally Mot's slave, which to me seems like a cop-out. So we have a bit of the tale missing again, but what we can read is basically Baal, he's complaining to El that his dominion is in danger. So El, he sends his messengers to Shigar and Ithgin, whom are responsible for cattle and sheep, and he wants them to provide the animals for a feast for Mot. When a messenger from Mot finally arrives at the divine assembly, he demanding to know where Baal is. Eventually, we end up back at El's domain, and Shamash, the sun goddess, has some advice for Baal. Under her advisement, Baal, he finds a heifer, and with the heifer a human child. And where humans came from, I don't know. It's not in the tale. But Baal, he does this after going down to the two mountains which marks the entrance of the underworld. He dresses the child in his own robes, and it is offered as a gift to Mot. When the tale goes back to Gapan and Ugar, they arrive in El's domain. They tell him that while searching for Baal, they discovered him dead. Dead by the bank of the river of the dead. El, distraught, grief-stricken, descends from his throne, drops to the ground, and he mourns. Anat, she dons a sackcloth in her grief, and when she finds the dead body, Shamash, whom promised Baal to bury him, helps Anat bury Baal's body upon Mount Sephon. Anat sacrifices many oxen, many sheep and goats as a memorial for Baal. She returns to El and tells Asherah and her family, many of whom sided with Mot, that Baal is dead. Asherah suggests that Entherat, from the beginning, should be placed upon Baal's vacant throne, but he is not tall enough. El's suspicion that he is too weak for such a position is confirmed. As the tale goes on, we find Anat searching the netherworld for the shade of Baal. Anat demands of Mot that he returns him to her, but Mot casually responds that he has searched the earth for Baal and found him at the entrance to the underworld, and he simply ate him. Now, I have no idea how Mot ate Baal, but yet they had a body to bury him. Missing text from the story is my guess. Anat, she is not calmed or dissuaded. She continues to search. But she finally loses her patience, so she seizes Mott. She attacks him with her sword. She shakes him. She burns him. She crushes him. Then she throws his remains to the birds. Eventually, Anat returns to El and announces that Mott, he is now dead. El, though, he had a dream of Baal still being alive. And not too long later, Baal returns from wherever he was hiding. And soon, Mott too returns to life, and he complains about his treatment to Baal. Mott demands Baal surrender one of Mott's own brothers. Baal, though, he sends messengers to tell Mott he is banished. If he is hungry in his banishment, he is allowed to eat the followers of Baal. Damn, that's harsh. But this, of course, is not good enough for Mott. So, the two gods, they clash and they fight atop Mount Zaphon. They fight on till they are exhausted. Shaphash arrives, and she warns Mott. She tells him fighting Baal is useless, because now El is fully on Baal's side. El would overturn Mott's throne if he were to win. Mott, not wanting to anger El any more in his fear, he declares Baal to be king. Alright, that's what I have for you today. A little longer of a video than usual, and a messy tale. I did the best I could to cover Canaanite creation, but we don't seem to know much of how they thought it was all created. In my reading, some people alluded to what we do know could be influenced by ancient Egypt and Greece. And of course, being so prominent in the Abrahamic religions, Canaanite culture could have been purged. After all, history is written by the victors. It's an apt saying for a reason. But still, it was an interesting tale, a little standard for pantheon god type tales, but that's what we got. Quick addition to my wrap up. While reading this tale, or these two tales, some allusions were made to this story being a cycle as well. Basically, Baal, he would disappear seasonally, and this is why we routinely have spells of dry periods, droughts, and whatnot, because Baal, he was not around to bring about the weather. Up for interpretation, I guess. I don't have much more to talk about, except at least now you know how Baal became king of the gods. This video, it was difficult for me. I don't know why, but putting it together, it was just hard. So I really hope you enjoyed it. In the future, I may cover what the Old Testament tells us of Canaanite culture, but that may be a ways off. So for those of you who made it this far, I thank you greatly. Hey all, I could really use your help. This is my 8th video in my How Are We Here series, and I really want to reach a wider audience. So if you enjoyed this video at all, please watch or rewatch my older videos. I do have a playlist set up. So without you, there's no way for me to slay that YouTube algorithm. If you could take a moment, let me know what you thought in the comments, give it a like and a share with your friends, and please, make sure you are subscribed. That's really important to me. It lets me know I am not in this fight alone. Thank you all no matter what you decide to do. I appreciate the view. If you enjoyed hearing a little about the Canaanite pantheon of gods, maybe you're like hearing about other creation stories. I have a playlist set up with other tales on the channel. Take a view. TLDR. I'm just some guy on the YouTube who did some reading on an interesting topic and shared it the best I could. Thank you all one last time. Please, have a great day, and take care, keep safe.